What do you do when you've been a stay at home mom for 20 years and the nest is getting empty? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today because that's exactly where I am. After literally 2 decades of being home, raising my children, I'm down to the last one at home who is a sophomore in high school. And so, yeah, it's about that time to start thinking about what's next for me after all these years of investing in them, getting to know them. Um, yeah, now it's time for me to get to know me and, where need be, invest in me and what's possible for me next. We talk about that a lot here. What is made possible by the situations that you find yourself in. And I have been, as you have been, maturing, evolving, changing. I'm not still the same woman I was when I became a pediatrician. I'm not the same woman I was when I first became a mom. I have a lot of years and life lessons under my belt, and that all comes with me as I am figuring out and praying about my next. And so I wanted to make this video to encourage you, well, to share with you the three things I'm using to help me gauge and be guided on what's next for me. Now, if you've been around here for any length of time, welcome back. And if you're new, hey, welcome. But I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. So he is the foundation of all the things. He is who informs me about what's going on in my life, in my family, in my marriage, all the things. So he is a given. But there are three areas or three things that I would invite you to consider as you are thinking about what's next for you. The first thing I would encourage you to do is to look back. If you are in a position like I am now, where you are entering into a major life shift, a new season, this one in particular is my husband and I becoming empty nesters here shortly. And when it comes to what is possible for me and what's possible for you, I suggest that you look back. Look back to childhood, as early back there as you can. Before you had bills and before you had responsibilities, certainly before you had your own children. When you were a child, what were you like? What were you into? What were you passionate about? What were you envisioning for yourself? What kind of personality did you have? How did you approach things that you wanted? And how did you just go after stuff? Like, what were you like? And what were you always thinking of then that maybe you didn't get a chance to do because, life does what it does. And maybe that's what it is that you get to do now at this stage of life. But at least that little girl has a lot to share. She has a lot to inform you. She is the most untouched version of you before people and all their fears got a chance to squash her dreams. She thought about things and she envisioned things. What was she envisioning? And what kind of gumption? I like to say that word gumption. What kind of gumption did she have? How did she dare to believe she could do those things when maybe those around her did not? That's certainly my experience. From the age of 6, I said emphatically that I was going to be a pediatrician. I loved my pediatrician. I loved what he got to do all day. I loved children, and so I was like, "Oh, I'm going to do that. Sure, I'm going to do that." And I heard all the reasons why I couldn't. I didn't care that I was from the South Bronx. I didn't care that I was a first generation West Indian American. I didn't even care that by the time I got to high school, my high school guidance counselor had the nerve to say that she didn't think I could do it and I should probably pick something else. Not with my all A's. What are we talking about? And so, anyway, she was late. By the time she got to me, I had already decided and had already set my sights and had already figured out what kind of grades you needed and what the path was and all the things. It was just for me to walk it out. And that girl When I think about that girl, she is something else. And she inspires me today because she didn't take no, she didn't take people's doubt, she didn't take people's opinions, she didn't need people to validate her thought, her vision. It's what she wanted, and she was relentless. And that girl hasn't gone anywhere. She's still in there. It's just for me to be like, hey, girl, come talk to me, come play. And whoever your little girl is on the inside of you, she has a lot to tell you, a lot to remind you of who you were before the cares of this world crowded out her vision for you, her daring to dream, her belief that so many, if not all things, were possible for her. To be able to see something from so young and to hold on to it for so many years until it came to pass is something that I'm having to tap into now. That whatever it is that I'm seeing for myself, I'm still that same 6 year old who's like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. And even as people and things and circumstances uh, may be waving in my face, that's not possible. I don't think you're going to be able to do that. I have a little too much history to give those kinds of things weight. The things that I have already seen happen inform me a lot more than the threats of things that can't happen. She's still there. So pull up a chair, get you some tea, get a cup of coffee if that's your thing, and talk with her. Reconnect with her. Remember what she was like and see what she still has to say about what's still possible for you. So that's the first thing. And so that brings me to the second thing. We talked about looking back. You should look around. Look around you at the life you have been living and the experiences that you've had and the lessons that you've learned. Yeah, I'm a pediatrician, but the stuff I come on here and talk with you about, the things that I have mentored mothers about, these are lived experiences. And they are not things that I borrowed from my mom because most of what I got from my mom, I did not want to repeat. And so these are things that I've had to learn from the ground up through a whole lot of prayer and a whole lot of trial and error and a whole lot of vision for what I wanted to see for my family as a whole. And then as I got to know each of my children, what I could see for them and their abilities and the possibilities for them, and to be a part of fostering that and investing in that and speaking into that. There are so many skills that I've picked up just in raising my children, just in managing my home. But then there are the things where I have been able to invest in myself over the years, a children's book writing course, and then eventually writing Daddy's Girl Forever, which is not a children's book, but it is the book that I needed to write at the time while I was homeschooling my children because, one new thing wasn't enough. I had to do a new thing with another new thing at the same time. But that's just how it worked out. And so wrote that book, and that was the first of other books. And then 2020 came, and you know what that brought. And so then I find myself doing a podcast because I felt the need to do what I like to do, which is encourage moms. And the only way I could do it and do it on mass scale at the time that I was comfortable doing was podcasting. There are a lot of things that, particularly in my life, I have done that were firsts for me and for many people that I know. Um, Most people are not doctors. Most people are not writing books. Most people are not starting podcasts. And so there have been things that I have experienced while I have been at home taking care of my children that inform and that have transformed me into who I am now. But they've all been fodder for nuggets of wisdom that I have that I can share with others and that I have shared with others. And so it's a part of what I'm able to offer in the current landscape. Um, There are things that I can teach and explain that would prevent someone from having to have that exact experience. We're all going to have our own experiences, but you may as well have a new one. You shouldn't have one that somebody else had and already learned from if you can learn from it that way. And you have likewise your own experiences where you have gleaned from things just by living life. Everything is not learned. And I can tell you this because I've done a lot of years learning from a book, but everything is not learned from a book. Some things are what you go through. And yes, you do. If you take it seriously, you can grow through what you go through. And so look around and see what those things are. If you have a journal, go back, or journals, if you're me, look back at those and see what you said, see what you noticed, see what you um, dared to write down that maybe you didn't say to anyone else, but it was like a thing that you hoped to do someday, or something you came across um, in your stay at home mom journey, and you were like, man, I really would love to do that someday. See where you wrote those things down and revisit them. Are they still things you're passionate about? Are they more possible? Are they more within reach now than they were before? Are you in a position financially now where if you can't just go right out and start doing the thing, maybe you can get a little more education around the thing? So, yeah, the opportunity to look around at what you have experienced in motherhood and the things ancillary to that. I mean, just because you were a stay at home mom, you weren't a hermit. Like, there were still things, I hope there are things that you have been doing to invest in yourself along this motherhood journey. What classes did you take? Where did you volunteer while your kids, were school age and they went off and were in school during the day? Where did you volunteer and what did you learn there? How did those things add to you and shape you and give you a vision for what you could do when that season, when the stay at home season of motherhood was over? There are so many things. The field trips you took your kids on, if you homeschooled them, what that was like. And so there have always been things, even though I my focus and my primary concern was raising my children and investing with them, I always kept room for um, checking in with myself and development and developing and staying current on the things that I'm was becoming interested in and daring to try them. Um, so look at those things that you have done and take note of that along with what you discovered looking back at the little girl in you. And then do this third thing, look up. And I mean that in two ways. For me, it's looking up in terms of, okay, God, what's next? Everything is about prayer. Everything is about, hey, Jesus, what do you have for me? What's next? What do you see for me? What did you plan for me? How are all these experiences that you had me have and experiences that I didn't want to have but walked into? How are you using them? How are you working them together to prepare me for what you have for me? He and my relationship with him is the one that undergirds everything. But then it's also looking up at the people around you. And, you know, the culture we live in now, everybody tells everybody everything about how they feel, what they need, what they don't have, what they're happy about, what they're sad about, just all the things. And so, as you are engaging with people in real life, as you are scrolling, as we all do, notice what people are saying they need that you can supply. Um, what are the skills that they are wishing they had that you have in abundance, whether it was from your career life or whether you developed it while you were at home? And how can you sharpen those skills or present them in a way that lets them know that you're their girl? Look up and notice who is drawn to you and what they're talking about when they come to you. And then, with the information you gathered from looking back and looking around, you can see, okay, I can actually meet that need. That's actually something I can speak into. Uh, I want you to know that there is no such thing as it being too late. the 6-year-old me wants you to know that there's no such thing as it being too late or you being too old. Old. There's just no such thing. There are opportunities abounding, particularly, and I really am having to embrace it for myself, for people of our age who know some things. We just know. We've lived enough life to have made the mistakes, learned the lessons, and applied them to our lives, and to see how things turned out, that we can turn around and say, hey, girl, don't do that. I went down that road. It's terrible. Go this way. And the willingness to be available to share that wisdom and that insight is something that is priceless for those who are willing to hear and be wise. But it's also a blessing to you that the richness of what you have learned, that by the way, your teenage kids are not interested in and they don't find valuable, girl, go find other people who find your wisdom valuable. They are there. They're older than your kids and they're in a position where they're like, oh my goodness, I need somebody to tell me how to navigate this. And here you are because you have done it. And so it also scratches that itch that you have to, it's like when your breasts were engorged, if you breastfed, and it's like, I have got to give this to somebody. Well, hey, you have all this information, all this knowledge. How can you make it available to the people around you who are clearly in distress, who are clearly wishing that they had this information that you have to give? But those three things that I mentioned to you about looking back and looking around your life for clues, and then looking up around you at the people who you are coming across in person or who you are seeing online and they're in your feed and you're noticing their laments, their pain points. Is there something in your pre stay at home mom days or what you have picked up during your stay at home mom days that could be useful and could be a blessing that you could offer to younger people who are in a season where they are now ready to learn. Maybe they weren't ready to learn from their parents at the time when they were at home, but now that they're out there and life is hitting them the way life does, they are looking for people. The wise ones are looking for people who have been there, done that, and can tell them how to sidestep some things so that they don't have to learn the whole lesson the hard way. And now that my home is about to be empty, then you can say, okay, I'm in a position to actually serve them with my time and extended amounts of time. So that's where I am. And it's pretty, it's exciting. Sometimes it's nerve wracking. Sometimes it's downright confusing. Because really, there's a thing as having too many options, too many possibilities. And that's for me where I would also caution you to not feel pressure, to pause and take time to really think through all of this, really think through what you have noticed from looking back and being inspired by that younger you, what you've noticed looking around at your experiences in the home for those of you who, like me, are coming to the end of a stay at home era. And take all of that and take the time, be prayerful, pause, and think about how that all can serve the people that when I look up and look around, they seem to be in need of. For me, that's looking like doing more speaking. It's looking like doing more mentoring, which I love because mentoring moms is my jam. And so I'm looking forward to that. I will admit that there are times when it gets overwhelming because, you know, I'm also not in my 20s. And so you don't want to waste time doing stuff that's not going to work or that's not helpful or that's not productive. But I think when you really think about it, with all your lived experience, all of your wisdom, um, whatever it is you have to share, there is a place for it. it might take some finesse in terms of figuring out how to package it, figuring out what to focus on, figuring out um, how much of your experiences make sense together to be a wonderfully unique offering to people. And I think that's part of what the being patient and pacing yourself is about. Is become a student of yourself is basically what it's about. All that looking back, looking around, looking up is being a student of yourself and of your environment, and seeing for the woman who you are now how that all fits together. And maybe you need a coach. Maybe you just need some more YouTube videos. Who knows? That's part of what you will discover. But look at it as a journey. Look at it as an opportunity for you to get to know the current you now that you have permission to dive into who you are after all these years of diving into who your children are and helping them be great. Now it's your turn, and you have the opportunity to really um, get to know the current you and be her advocate, be her cheerleader, be that 6 year old version of you, believing in you and what you can do now. Because, I mean, we're living in a time where so many things are possible. Really, the challenge is narrowing things down so that the thing that you do is the most effective, the most impactful, where you're not trying to do so many things that you're really just a Janet of all trades and a master of none. Um, Take the time to really think about what lights you up right now in this phase of your life, and what you what skills you have and or can develop. Because I'm not trying to go to anybody's school anymore. I'm I'm done. But it's not too late. I mean, I'm learning all the time. I'm on YouTube learning all the time. I'm taking courses. I just finished taking a speaker's course. So you can always learn and level up. But there's a lot of lived experience that you've had that you can build upon. And don't let anyone have you here thinking that because you've been at home, you're some sort of relic and you are out of touch and you have nothing to offer. So, yeah, I'm excited about this season. This YouTube channel is a part of it, getting the opportunity to share what I know from my experience and career wise and home experience, and to make it available to people. Because here's the thing, I'm always talking about legacy, and legacy is what you leave behind. And this is an opportunity to think about what you want to leave behind. Sure, there's a legacy that we want to leave behind for our children, as we should. Righteous people do that. They leave a legacy for their children and their children's children. But there's also a legacy that you want to leave in the world, things that you want to leave behind, so that people coming behind you who will never have the opportunity to sit across from you at a table or to watch your video or to hear your podcast or whatever means you use to um, convey convey your gifts to the world, leave something behind that they can still learn from. So I'm grateful that I have books that I leave behind, that I can do that. I'm grateful for my podcast episodes that are still up for people to experience and enjoy. And these videos are also a part of that. So think about your your life beyond the years you have left here, to how you can impact lives even after, and approach this new season with excitement, with enthusiasm, with a curious eye, curious about who you have become and what other gifts are still inside of you that you haven't even tapped into yet, and the potential that is out there for you to share your gifts with those who are looking for them. So I hope that encourages you. That encouraged me. And until next time, when it comes to you being the mother of your children, you are still the woman for the job. Take care.